everybody. Welcome to the PVD Horror Podcast. My name is Dave. I'm joined here with my co-host Brandon, and I have a very special guest that you will all be very familiar with in the upcoming year. We have Kit Green, who is going to portray Tinkerbell in the upcoming Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare, which is the third installment on the Twisted Childhood universe, or AKA the Poohniverse. And it is a dark retelling of J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan. Kit, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. It's great to meet you both.
Thank
you. Oh, thanks.
So if you like all things horror and want to get the best horror news, interviews, and reviews,
like, subscribe, and ring that bell to follow us and satisfy all your horror needs. I was able to just look at all your background and your history. You are very talented. You have so many great artists, things that you take part in, like theater. Where did you get your start in, to want to start like acting and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been an artist for a long time, and my as you say, my work covers a lot of things. I'm a musician and a comedian. Like that's really what I did for a long time, and then acting's always been part of that. I always say it's just one of the things that I do.
Okay.
And recently, I've been much more interested in being in other people's projects. So I've performed in an opera. I've been touring internationally with an opera, which has been something really exciting. Not really what I thought I'd do, and doing some sort of classy theatre. I'm playing Mrs. Dalloway, Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway next year,
Okay.
and now horror films. So it's really great to not be driving these projects and to sort of like dive into these worlds, and certainly Peter Pan was one of those.
Sure.
Now, for you to dive right into horror, what are some of your favorite horror movies that you grew up that you loved?
Okay, so look, now this is when I just have to come out like in a
Yeah.
big way. Like I really like horror. And I think it's not because I have like, genre blindness or anything like that. I think it's because my life is tense enough and I don't like
Mhm.
feeling extra tense. And
Yes.
I'm really genuinely intrigued by obviously it really serves people emotionally and really doesn't work for me the minute some scary music starts and I'm just like, why would you even go in that room, like what's wrong with you? And then I just can't watch it. I just can't watch it. And it's really interesting that I just can't put myself through it. So yeah, I mean, I like a thriller, I suppose, like a
Okay.
psychological thriller, but I can't be going with anything. I don't like being made to be tense. Maybe it's, just my experience of living as a trans person in the 21st century. Maybe I'm tense enough going to the shops. Do
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, so that's another reason why this has been so interesting. You know.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Now, like I said, you have a list of like great opportunities and things that you have taken part of. You released an album last year called Always Here, which features 8 great tracks. I was able to check it out. What was the process like for you creating this album?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I have comedy characters, so I
Yep.
think I released like 8 or 9 country albums, comedy country albums. Of course I did, with titles like "If You Can't Live Without Me, Why Weren't You Dead When I Met You,"
Mhm.
um, or the classic "No Dicks as Hard as My Life." But so I did all of these, I did all of these albums, but I never released an album in my own name, and so yeah, it was an absolute pleasure to have the chance to do that. And I worked with a great co-writer and an amazing producer who does loads of great pop artists in the UK. And yeah, it was a real thrill. And I'm actually just starting work on my second album, which is
Oh, cool.
my name, which is yeah, literally this week. So
Any teaser song titles? Because those others are genius.
but these are not, I'm not doing comedy albums anymore.
Oh,
But
Yeah.
I've got, yeah, which is a shame because I love a comedy song.
yeah.
Yeah, there's some great ones. I'm just roadkill on the freeway of your love. Classic country pop ballad.
Nice.
No, they're well worth checking out. That character was, I don't do that character anymore, but it was just a pleasure to be that character, and it talked about all my interests in America and gave me a chance to sing, comedy
Yeah.
country power ballads. Why the hell not?
Did you just say you have interest in America?
Well, to like explore our relationship with America, like
Sure.
everyone in the world has to have a relationship with America, and it's because of the the cultural dominance and as well as political dominance, and we can't escape from the soft power, and I think it's really interesting, and I love so much of my cultural influence comes from the States,
It-
and I'm
Mhm.
not American, and I think
Yeah.
so many people we don't in this country, in Australia, all around the world, we don't really examine our relationship with America enough, I think.
There's this individual on social media, and he's basically goes by like he's a Brit in America, and he's been here for a while in the States, just going around trying to get all the experiences. And he basically just I almost wonder if it's like just for show, because all he does is tell us how great America is and how great of a time he is having. And I'm like, I wonder if that's how he really feels, or if that's how a Brit in America would really experience it, if they would really love it, or if it's kind of like, I don't know.
I
I
th
have my own feelings about how we probably are to others.
Hmm.
I think the answer is foreign, and I think
Yeah.
the state of
Yep.
foreignness is really exciting. It's really great. That's why we travel, to have foreign experience, to experience things in same but similar but different, And I think what we tend not to do, so many British people, like, they describe themselves through sort of American tropes, and I think I'm like, maybe, but maybe not, and
Yeah.
so I spent a lot of my life doing that. But yeah, there's some great
Cool.
comedy songs in there. Look up Tina C. If you chuckle at those song titles, you'll like the song.
Okay.
Now, I noticed that you're a big fan of Beyonce. Who are some of your favorite artists that inspired your music choice that you created that album with?
Wow. Okay. So yes, thank you for referencing Beyonce. I
Yeah.
mean, um, yeah, I just can't get beyond Beyonce, really.
Oh,
I
there you
mean,
go.
Beyonce, I would say, didn't influences absolutely everything in my life, but definitely didn't influence that album, because I can't even begin to be worthy.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I wanted to make a really fun. I wanted to do some really fun pop songs, even though this is an album about being gender non-conforming, and it's like there's a whole range of songs, you've heard, and they're all in different styles. So I imagined, what might I have been like if I lived in different decades. So there's
Okay.
like a 1920s Weimar Germany song, there's a 1950s Hollywood song, there's a 1970s New York song, which I really loved. So I suppose each one of those genre songs is influenced by different people. So that's like really Bowie and
Yeah.
Iggy Pop and those kind of things. And then, I wanted to make like a huge Ibiza 90s rave anthem, which I love. And then a bit like Donna Summer, she made a concept album in the 70s, and they wanted to go into the past, and then wanted to go into the future. So it was really influenced by that. And the futuristic song that they created was I Feel Love. So no pressure. So we did one called Future Now, which is like a futuristic retro pop song. So, you
Nice.
know, so there's a lot
It
going
sound
on.
it sounds like a lot of your music is basically like self-exploration.
Oh, absolutely. I think all my
Mm.
work self exploration. Definitely, definitely. And
Nice.
I, 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 I mean, that's why I got into it. And there's a great Bell Hooks quote about how um, that everybody, but especially queer people, they don't fit into the world, and so you have to create the world in order to fit into it. And I think that's why so many people become artists, because they're always in this process of creating in order to exist. And when I read that, I was like, yes, that is what I've been doing for 25 years. So yeah, and also, what else are we doing if we're alive? But trying to
Yeah.
understand like the world.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and I understand, going back to horror, like, I understand that another part of a big part of horror is dealing with fear, dealing with the fear. I was making a
Yeah.
joke of it, but dealing with the fear of being alive, dealing with the fear of life and death,
Mhm.
and the fact that this can be taken away from you by malevolent forces and all that kind of stuff, and things that we don't understand, because we don't understand a lot. So I do understand horror. I just don't expose myself to
Well,
it.
it's funny because the thing that you said makes you want to turn it off is kind of the reason why some people actually connect to it, is because it's controlled fear. Like
I
I
would,
have the
I
ability
totally
to
get that.
like I'm removed from it, and I have the
Mhm.
ability to turn it on, turn it off when I want to. So yeah, you're right. A lot of it is kind of like facing the fear or like exposing yourself to things that would be scary, but also feeling a sense of control, I think.
Yes, yes, and I really understand that psychologically. It's just I
Yeah.
don't want anyone else to do it to me.
Yeah.
But I think it really fulfills a very deep part of our psyche, and that's why being surrounded, especially with Scott, the director of Peter Pan, who's an absolute genius as far as I can see. Like he's
Yeah.
just brilliant. It's like he's, and I mean this with so much love. He's like a cult leader. Like literally, when you're with him, everything makes sense, and then you walk away and go, "What did I agree to now?" He's just one. He's really, really wonderful, and I see what horror and this sort of extreme world really, really gives him, and this quite sophisticated way he's exploring things
Sure.
through this genre, and how
Yeah.
quickly they've grown as a collective from the first film to this
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. And I always give Scott credit for that, because it's just who would think to sit there and make these characters into, horror, horror films and everything like that. So he
Yeah,
just keeps pumping them out. So I just thought we would see like Winnie the Pooh and that was it. And nope, here we go. We got
Yeah.
so many other
well,
films coming.
all I can
Yeah.
say, kids, is brace yourselves.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
and we may be talking quite a lot in the future. That's all I'm
Oh, I'm
saying.
sure. Yeah.
So
Now, Kit, you also worked on What Will Survive of Us workshop, which helps create a personal legacy through the love of art. How did you get started with that?
yeah, so I've done lots of work around aging and around care for elders, and so I made a big show of mine was a fake care home, a
Mm.
fake residential care home and the show lasts for 48 hours, and the audience live in a fake care home, and everything happens around them. That's the kind of show that I make. And so, having done so much of that work, I was thinking a lot about legacy and the ability to choose what we leave behind us. And obviously, we leave a financial will and we leave a sort of, other things behind us. But why not leave a record of the things that we loved? Because the things that we love add up to a picture of who we are and therefore who we were. And so, yeah, it's a huge project which is running for several years and is funded by the National Heritage Lottery Fund. So it's like they normally fund in the UK heritage because that's all we've got. Shh, don't tell anybody, but that's what we've got left. Um, but they normally fund British heritage, and I made this argument and said personal heritage is just as important as an old building or a church or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so it's an opportunity to reflect on things that you love, and so you would pick some horror films. I would pick a Donna Summer 1970s disco track. It's all the
Yeah.
same, or probably I would just choose lots of Beyonce. Um, but yes, it's a great project, and I'm really pleased with how it's going.
It's
Thanks
amazing.
That's
for
cool.
that. I love that.
Yeah. Now, like you talked about earlier, some of your characters, you created cool characters such as Tina C and Ida Bar, and you host cool events. How did this all start?
Because well, before I started performing, I worked in television and I worked in
Okay.
music television. So music's always been at the heart of what I do. And when I started performing, it was just natural to sort of entertain the people that I'd worked in TV with. And so I just started sort of doing a pastiche country music singer, a pastiche hip hop character. So my Ida Bar's a very, very old lady who should be dead and very British, and used to be a music hall singer. And then she just started doing Missy Elliott and Beyonce and R&B, but in a ridiculous way, in a ridiculous way. So and doing quite sophisticated rap. So I suppose it started to end. I suppose it started as in jokes with kind of like music obsessives, and then I realized, well, people really love these characters, and I can talk about the world and how I see the world.
Yeah.
That's
When
cool.
you're creating characters, um, when you go into the character, what is that experience like? Because you're giving this persona
Mm.
life, and it sounds like people are connecting with it. So it's you in order for that to happen, you're obviously portraying it as pretty believable.
Yeah, I find I've created lots of characters and I've played lots of parts, but those two in particular, and another one that I don't do so much, but those two in particular, I just had the ability to go there and stay there without it really costing me anything, if that makes any sense. Like I could just do it, and they both enabled. They were obviously both parts of my
Sure.
personality, and just gave me something. Like Ida's very, very old and and quite miserable, and so it was like my but a bit naughty. So it's like my misanthropic side. So I do all the things. So I'll do a really big number, and everyone goes crazy, and then I'll go, God, I wish I was dead. Do you know what I mean? Like I can just be quite miserable. And I suppose Tina was my desire for attention, or whatever, my desire to look pretty. So yeah, I just those two in particular, I can do a 2 hour solo
Yeah.
show and not think about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's great.
cool. Now, tell us a little bit about organ karaoke, what you call org
Organoki.
karaoke. Yeah.
Organoke.
Organoki, yeah. Oh, you've really done your research.
Uh,
It's honestly the most joyful thing I do. So it's karaoke with a church organ,
okay.
and
Okay.
it's slowly taking over. So
Yeah.
we started in a church in South London, and it's just growing and growing and growing. And now we play to thousands of people, and it always sells out.
That's
And
genius.
I host it as my old lady character, as Ida
Yeah.
Bar,
Yeah.
and Ida literally sits there being quite miserable through it. Especially if people aren't very good. Yeah, so it's with an organ. The organist is genius. So, and then there's a full band, and then everyone sings. So, like, you've got like 1,000 people in a church singing, standing on pews singing, and it's like just fulfills all of that desire for collective communal joy that we used to get in churches, but without the bother of God. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with pop music as the ascendant thing that needs to be worshipped. We did two events weekend before last, and the new song was Texas Hold'em, so I got to sing Texas Hold'em with
There
the
you
church.
go.
Wait,
So
did you have you gotten copyright for Organoki? Because that's genius.
yeah, we
If
have.
not, oh, okay, good.
Yeah,
That's
we have. So, I mean, whether you can stop people singing with a church organ, I don't know, but
yeah,
organising certainly the whole kind of holding form and everything that goes with it. Yeah, and we're just getting bigger and bigger venues, and we'll definitely be at the proms and everything like that.
wow, that's awesome.
It's yeah, it's slightly eccentric, and it feels like the best of sort of slightly eccentric British
Yeah, yeah,
entertainment.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's
I
really
love
cool.
it.
'Cause I was sitting there watching a video and I'm like,
Oh,
wow.
did
At
you?
first, I thought it was a clip from like a movie or something. And I'm like, hold on, this is an event that's going on. I'm like, this looks amazing. Everybody's just hugging, holding, and singing. You got the candles lit everywhere.
Joyful, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
totally joyful. So yeah, oh, I'm so happy you watched that. Yeah.
So congratulations on that because you're definitely
Yeah.
talented. And, that's the main thing about being creative. You don't stop. And also, you're involved in Capcom's new video game, Dragon Dogma 2, that released back in March. It's an action role-playing game. What was it like working on a video game for you?
Um, I was like it was a whole new thing for me,
Yeah.
and I'd never done motion capture before, and so the first day, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really know what was going on, but I got away with it. So
Mm.
they put you in the whole suit, and then you're just facing a wall of giant screens, and on like one screen is your character, and another screen is the whole game, and then there's like a mock-up on another screen, and then there's a director who's in one country, and then producers who are all in Japan, and then somebody who I didn't really know who they were, but they were on another screen, and it's like it is like science fiction, and you're
Yeah.
like, what the hell's going on?
Hmm.
And then, but then fortunately I'd learnt my scenes, and then you just did it. And yeah. And then after that, it just got easy. Uh,
Yeah.
and I loved it because when it came out, then suddenly I got so many messages on Instagram with people who had found, it's quite complicated how my character works. So they're there, but then there's a whole twist and everything. And yeah, people, the level of engagement through Instagram and was amazing. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
That's incredible.
That's the thing. You're able to bring everybody together, with video games, movies, the power of Instagram because it doesn't stop. And then even with Instagram, like a lot of our followers, became friends with them, and so it's like when we go to different states, we like get together sometimes and see them. So when they come here, it's pretty awesome. So just
And yeah, it's really that, and the world's changing because of that level of connection
yeah.
and respect. And I liked some of those conversations I was having because I was like, I had never fully understood quite how how the game works and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
And then so we are sort of like sharing information in a way, and it really made the whole thing much richer for me.
Well,
Yeah.
that's cool.
I stumbled on a quote that you had on your website from Ken Dodd, who I'm not familiar with, but
Oh my
just to be
God.
honest. But it said there are two ways of entertaining an audience. You can either do a show at them or with them, and with them is the best way.
Mm.
I thought that was it's a simple quote, but I thought it was pretty profound, and I just wanted you to kind of explain why you connect to that quote and why that's on your website.
No, thank you for that. Yeah, we'll come back to who Ken Dodd is. But I think that's everything for me. And so thank you for this was the perfect way to bring it up because that really makes sense. It's like I did this game, and then really it's only with communication with the audience that it became alive for me. And so that's why the work that I make, the theatre that I make, has no fourth wall and is always interactive and is always, like these big shows, the care home one where the audience move in. I did a show that I did in London and then was taken to New York, and it was the Guggenheim put it on at it was the first time they'd done a theatre show at the Guggenheim.
Okay.
And that was about pornography addiction, and the audience are in a self-help group. They don't know they're going to be in a self-help group, but they are, and they don't know who's an actor and who's a member of the audience. And so you're making this piece with the audience.
Huh.
And it's fully written, it's fully constructed, you're fully held by me and my work, but you're also bringing yourself to it. And I think theatre at its best should be, any kind of theatre in whatever medium should be something that you do together, because otherwise, there's just somebody on stage, a Beyonce, the Renaissance tour, that was collaborative,
Yep.
there were all these things. There was the mute challenge and all this kind of stuff. It was live. It wasn't just like, I'm going to do this and you sit in the dark and shut up. And that makes me, I don't like that. I hate sitting in an audience and go, you don't care if I'm here or not. I want it has to, otherwise don't do it live,
Right.
And now, as you say, social media enables it to that communication to continue longer and more meaningfully.
With the horror genre, I think that's a big piece of it for us is we're not just about going to a theater and watching a movie alone. A lot of it is the community piece for us, and also building community. So I think we both can really connect with everything you're saying. Just here in our small state within the States, it's we've put a big focus on doing live events to gather people together so that we can watch the movies that we love, but also do it with new friends and strangers and all that stuff. So that's been a big piece for us. So it's cool to hear you talk about that.
I really get that, and I'm honestly really interested in this new world that I've been invited into by Scott, and I think it's already kind of bringing a richness to my life because I'm interested. I'm intrigued about why people become fans of and so it's already kind of creating this new thing. And then and also on Instagram, I do get these messages hating, and I'm like,
Yeah.
where's this one going?
How did you get involved? How did Scott approach you? How was Scott familiar with
I
you?
had to ask him, Scott. I'm not sure. I think maybe he knew my age. I think my agent had a client that was in one of the previous films.
Yeah.
And so I don't know whether that's how he knew me. I don't know. But certainly he asked me to do it, and I was a bit kind of like, I'm not really sure, and then I don't know what to say yes to in it, you know, and then he asked me to just read some bits, and then I was like, oh, I totally get it, you know, and then when he was writing the script, he was asking me a few things, you know, so there was a tiny bit of, you know, backwards and forwards about it, especially about the trans stuff that's going on in the script, which is beautifully handled and is almost not there, and then sort of is. But anyway, you'll see. And yeah, so I liked the way that it evolved.
Yeah, for listeners or viewers watching, when we say Scott, we're talking about Scott Jeffrey or Scott Chambers, I guess, depending on how he's promoting the work that he's in. And as we're talking about this, were you familiar with Scott's more recent film that he acted in, which was Dr. Jekyll? I think was it Brandon?
Yeah,
Was it
Dr. Jekyll and
just
Hyde.
Dr. Jekyll and Hyde?
Yeah.
Where he had Eddie Izzard playing Dr. Jekyll.
Yes, I'd heard about it, and yeah, so I heard that about it. Yeah.
It just feels like Scott seems very like inclusive and looking to create roles that are just anybody can play in, and also not shying away from anything, which I think is really a really great thing.
Really, really great, and I definitely, that's completely true, and then it brings all of this richness, you know, that because you're dealing with really interesting performers who've had interesting lives, you know, and so there's all this complexity. But yeah, Scott's cool in that way, in lots of ways, as far as I can see.
When you said yes to being an evil or being part of this dark Peter Pan, did you also know that this is the same person who made the dark Winnie the Pooh movie? And was that already familiar to you when you said yes?
So you know my attitude to horror. I remember hearing about it on the very straight BBC radio news program called the Today program, and they did one of this sort of like humorous, like, oh, you'll never believe it, oh, do da, 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 da. They're doing a terrible horror film of Winnie the Pooh, and I remember, you know, like making coffee and like going, well, I will never watch that, but that sounds great. You know, I definitely was like, because they were being so sniffy about it. And I was like, this sounds great. Come on, kids. And I remember thinking, oh, this sounds a bit punk. And I like that. You know, it sounds irreverent and you know, fun. And yeah. So it's funny that I've ended up knowing them.
Absolutely. We've been following his movies for quite a while. I'm trying to remember around the first time we were exposed to him. Maybe it was 2019, 2020.
Yeah,
we had a couple of actresses on that were part of his films, and we've been in kind of contact through social media, just kind of supporting. He was doing Proportion Productions and Jagged Edge Productions, all that stuff. But it always felt like a lot of his movies were in response to popular titles at the time. Like when Pet Cemetery came out, he did like a Pet Graveyard. So it was kind of like a response to those. But now in many ways, he's ahead of the curve and people are now mimicking his films, which I think is amazing. What's your take on this whole like twisted, dark takes of these children's fairy tales?
Well, I would say that when I read the full script for Peter Pan, I totally understood it. I totally understand what he was doing, and I think of it as a psychological thriller. I think it's a really emotionally complex psychological thriller, and I really got that from reading it, and then talking to him when we were shooting. I was like, oh yeah, this is really great, and I think there's a way of seeing all of this twisted childhood, you know, kind of genre that he's invented as, you know, on this really big kind of elemental level, which is like protecting the innocence of childhood, which is so deep in us as a species, you know. You could say it was like, it's terrible because you're destroying the innocence of these innocent, you know, these gorgeous little pretty children's stories, but actually really what they're about is there's innocent children, and then these malevolent forces, and then they have to be, you know, it's classic good and evil, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
Yep.
done with vulnerable children at the heart of it, which it really makes sense psychologically, I think.
Peter Pan, out of all the stories that are currently announced, is probably the one that does have like the most psychological themes in it. I mean, even just the
Yeah.
story itself is essentially about um growing up, like the people who never grow up. Like there's a reason it's called there's Peter Pan syndrome, like those individuals who just forever stay childish, I guess. So there's already so much there, and I'm interested if you're able to share. If not, totally respect that. Are you able to kind of share how Tinkerbell in particular, like your character, is being portrayed in this film?
And yeah, so it's not a great deal I can say.
Okay.
Okay.
But Tinkerbell is in this version is all about innocence, and you know how innocent she is, and how that's exploited. Is she innocent? Is she malevolent? You know, it's like it's playing with that the whole time.
Okay.
And I think that's what makes her so fascinating, and the relationship between Peter and Tinkerbell is really really stunning. I think
Yeah.
the way that this is being portrayed, and I mean it sort of always was. You know, even in the Disney cartoon, it's like what's going on? Like Tinkerbell's jealous of Wendy, and it's like, okay, that's all a bit murky for me. She's not. That's not an element in this one.
Okay.
But you're right. Yeah, I think Peter Pan is very emotionally dense. I mean, look, we haven't got time to get into J.M. Barrie and whatever the hell was going on with him.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like classic repressed, late Victorian Edwardian,
Yeah.
dealing with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
and it's all there in the story. So yeah, it does really make sense. And I hope that people will see this film and yeah, there's a lot of blood and there's a lot of scares, but also I think they will really get this kind of emotional complexity.
So
Yeah.
did filming a horror movie desensitize you?
Um, uh, well, yeah, I got used to, there was a lot of things I'd never seen before. Um, did it desensitize me? No. I mean, we were filming in most of my scenes were in an abandoned school, which had been abandoned for decades. And so there was just a lot of logistics. There was a lot of like, this room is too dirty. I don't like it. So yeah, so that was quite harrowing. But no, the scenes themselves weren't. No.
Well, I can't wait to check it out because, I've seen some of the behind the scenes shots that you had, there's one that kind of just shows you from behind a little bit, and then there was one on your Instagram post that you were like covered in blood. So it was like a picture
But
after you were
whose
done
blood is it?
shooting.
That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, I can't wait to check this out. So
Oh yeah, that was the one where I'm literally in between, just wrapped in
yeah,
towels.
yeah.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Whose blood was I covered in? Um, yeah, and yes, they've not really released any pictures of Tinkerbell yet, have
Mm,
they? So, and Peter, you've seen Peter's face, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
okay.
That's
Yep.
that's pretty much been the only movie still that we've seen so far, I think, is
But there's,
Peter Pan is a little bit of a deformity, it seems like.
yeah, there's prosthetics, put it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we are certainly excited. You also, just that's also very exciting that you kind of alluded to that this is, I mean, we got an announcement of like the upcoming films, but it sounds like you're kind of alluding to there is probably more that are going to be coming our way. So
There's
that's pretty
plans,
cool.
yeah. There's lots of plans, and given the track record of the incredible things they've achieved in a short period of time, I
Yeah.
can really believe that these will happen. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's actually the last thing I want to ask you because that's been something that Scott's production team has been infamous for is like being able to make um, like very nice looking films in a very short period of time. How long was filming for Peter Pan?
I think it was like 5 or 6 weeks,
Okay.
uh, total, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah. So that, I
um,
mean, again, that's rather quick. So
it's
that's
Yeah.
it's
great.
good. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's
Yeah.
like very intensive work, and really pushing the whole crew very hard, and then starting to edit whilst filming, and that's pretty amazing. You know, like I saw a few scenes like the day, you know, like a really quick assemble edit like the day after we shot them, and that feels really exciting, and then really influences the way you play later scenes and stuff. So yeah, they've got a good assembly line, and I don't mean that in any way to say it's functional. They've got a really good work ethic. Actually, I think it really makes. Yeah,
that's great.
Well, I can't wait to hear your new album when that comes out. You know, like I said, I really enjoyed that one. So for everybody listening, definitely go stream Kit's music, you know, and check out some of the comedy albums also. I have to add that to the list. I need to listen to the comedy album.
Look up Tina C. I became schizophrenic so I could love you twice as much. That was a class.
It's a genius.
Yep. So now, are you working on anything else at the moment? What else can everybody kind of, you know, prepare themselves for Kit Green's upcoming stuff?
Oh my God, so many things. I'm doing my Ida Bar character. I'm doing a show about AI. It's called Ida, and it's about Ida. You know, old people. You know, people are worried about AI. Like, how's it going to change the world? Ida's just really thrilled because she's going to upload her entire memory banks to AI. And she's going to be really disappointed that AI is not sophisticated enough. But yeah, we're doing a big show next year, which I'm excited about, in which we create live hip hop tracks with the audience as my pensioner character, and look at the issues around human rights and AI and stuff like that. So that's a good one. But yeah, I'm always up to some stuff.
Yeah,
it's wherever my brain goes. Yeah.
Now, you talked about like the fan interaction. Can you let the listeners know where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, so I'm Kit _Green on everything. So not everything, not on OnlyFans. Only Grands. Ida's on Only Grands.
Only Grands.
Yeah. So Kit _Green. Yeah.
Okay. Very nice.
All right. So everyone, stay tuned for plenty of stuff coming from Kit, but also Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare at some point in 2024. We don't have a release date yet, but keep your eyes peeled. But obviously, there'll be so much buzz around that when that comes up that I don't think you're going to be able to miss it. Kit, thank you so much for joining us. This was a pleasure.
It's great to chat to you both. What a wide-ranging conversation. That's so exciting, and I can't wait to see what you think of the film.
Absolutely.
Dying to tell you things, but of course I can't. So let's talk again then.
Well, you'll be back at some point, and when they're doing Peter Pan's sequel, then you got to come back on for that as well. But yeah, thank you everybody. Make sure you check out Kit on social media and all the projects coming out, and we'll see you next week for another episode. Have a good night.